in order to overcome your fears and to beat the obstacles in your way, in the way of your dreams, of your passions, of pursuing what you feel is valuable and worth it, is what is it you want that is worth the fight?
Welcome to Habit Masters. I'm Sheldon.
I'm Jeff.
And we have a quick, awesome little nugget for you guys today. Jeff and I have been talking about the things, what are we willing to fight for? What are we willing to face our fears for? Maybe look stupid. Maybe not actually look stupid, but we're afraid of looking stupid, of not being knowledgeable, of not being the best, right? I think this is just an awesome question because there's a part of me that I've always wondered, what am I really passionate about? I think a lot of people worry, they think about, well, what really am I passionate about? But I think we know, right? There are things that you may not have pursued them. You may not have dug into it as much as you want. Again, my belief is that we're all sons and daughters of God with this divine heritage of creativity and growth. And I guess I'm calling you, what do you want to call it? Like Bolshemoli on on the idea that a lot of people just don't have passions. I think you do. And I think by the time we're done today, those will have risen to the surface and you have more energy and desire and belief that you can pursue it.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the show, like living your best life. And I don't think that's possible unless you're pursuing the things that really are valuable to you, right? The things that you think about, that you've thought about, the dreams you've had sitting on the shelf that you've been afraid to pursue for fear of, failing is one, right? Like, oh, what if I do it and it doesn't work out? Or fear of looking stupid, which Sheldon mentioned before. Like, oh, what if I do it and people just don't, they don't think I'm the person, right? I'm not the girl, or I'm not the guy that, no one is at first, right? What do they say in the Bible? A prophet is never accepted in his own country. Forming a new identity requires a new commitment, a commitment to something new. And it is a battle, not just with the fear of what other people might say to you about your new pursuits, but of what your past self will say to you. Overcoming, there's a conflict between who you want to be and who you have been in the past. And that's a real struggle. That's something that you're going to have to face if you're going to want to live a new dream or create a new identity in your life.
Yeah. Jeff, you have a question that I thought was very profound. I've got a story I want to share. What should we do first?
Tell your story.
Okay. This is a true story. It was told to me by Monty Holmes and it was told straight to him from the Navy SEAL trainer himself. So this is a secondhand story, but a true one, fairly direct. I've been reading a book by Goggins. What's his name? I can't remember his first name. David Goggins? Yes.
David Goggins.
Can't recommend particularly because of the language, but this idea of just you have to take ownership. An effort is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think is very valuable. But it reminded me of this because he talks a lot about his, buds training Navy SEAL and stuff like that. There's this test to become a Navy SEAL where there's these knots underwater and you have to take, a deep breath, go down, be able to tie or undo tie these knots, and it has to be done right. There's people with scuba gear in the water, and then you can come back up. And I think there's 5 different knots, right, that you have to be able to do. And you get to come up and you get to take one breath before going down and doing it again. And it's the pass or fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you do it or you don't. If you don't become a Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah, it's a must do.
Yeah. And he's talking about this one particular person who went down and got the first one okay, came back up, got his breath. There are literally people in the water, rescue people because people drowned doing this test, right?
Yeah.
It's serious. And on the second one, it became clear that he was struggling. Came up, got his breath, went down for the third, and just barely, came up for a breath. And on the fourth one, literally died in the water, right? Couldn't do it, right? And so they drag him out. I mean, literally, the guys he drowned trying to do this resuscitation, get him back. And as he's coughing up the water, a little bit of blood, coming like to consciousness, like this first thing is like, did I pass? Right? Like that is literally the driving thing in his
Yeah.
mind. And the instructor's like, yes, son, like you passed, like you did it. Right. And he actually passed the test. But then he went on to talk about how, okay, who do you want on your side? I mean, you want people who are physically capable, people who know know their stuff and can get the job done. But like from this test, like they knew that this guy was willing to give his life for the mission, for his comrades, right? When push come to shove, this guy would give his life
Hmm.
to protect his fellow comrades. So yes, he didn't pass like the the physical test, but the actual test, right? Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
passed, right?
Yeah.
And the question that was posed to me, which I've thought about this many times, is like, what are you willing to give your life for, right? What are you so dedicated to, so passionate about, so like you would? When's the last time you've ever given half that amount of effort to anything? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, you got me thinking. Those who are listening right now or watching you, because we are on YouTube now, by the way. So if you go you can watch our episodes on YouTube. But I think that's a hard question to ask yourself, but I think an important one, because there has to be things in your life that matter more than you do. I know that's crazy because we're all very like self-interested, and obviously we want to stay alive, we want to be successful, all these things in our lives. But the funny part is when you lose yourself in the service or in the battle for something greater than yourself is really when you find yourself. And I know that sounds like a scripture reference, but it's true. Like and so the question that to add to that question, I think, is in order to overcome your fears and to beat the obstacles in your way, in the way of your dreams, of your passions, of pursuing what you feel is valuable and worth it, is what is it you want that is worth the fight, right? That is worth being told you're not good, or that is worth failing, right? There was a great question from Seth Godin I heard a few weeks ago where he said, a lot of people ask the question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And he's like, well, that's not a great question because it leads to too many answers. And if you go back to our 10X and all those types of ideas, he says the better question is, what would you do if you knew it would fail? What would you still do if you knew it would fail? And this is kind of that same question where what is worth the fight to you? Stuff that you would care enough about to risk failure, to risk your ego, to risk looking stupid, to risk being told that it's not going to work for you. Because if you look at anybody who's reached great level of success in their life in any endeavor, almost all of them have gone through a point, and I would say all of them at some point, maybe they just haven't shared it, but every story I've ever heard, they reach a point where they don't feel like they can make it. People tell them they're not going to make it. They are discouraged at every turn, and all of us have experienced that. The difference is they kept going. It was worth the fight to them, right? So the question you got to ask yourself today is, what's worth the fight for me? What am I willing to give my life energy to, right? And to Sheldon's point, maybe effort. Even your full life, right? Like willing to give. Now, that's a really hard question. It's like, what are you willing to give your life for?
Yeah, very few of us will ever be asked to give up our life for a cause, right?
Right.
I'm reading a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, very famous. Probably many of you have read it before, right? It's all about growth and fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. And basically, it dives very much into the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and how, with fixed, it's like you believe that it's innate. This really goes down to belief that like this is the way it is and you can't change it. And as a growth mindset, it's like it doesn't matter what it is, my aptitude, my ability, like even my perception, my personality, like it can be changed and molded. Right. Mm-hmm. And one thing with a fixed mindset that's very interesting, she doesn't delve into it as much probably as I think it's fascinating, is like, if you tell a child like they ace a test and it's like, good job, you're so smart. there are unwritten rules in there that are basically saying, like, if on the next one you don't do great, then you're not that smart,
Mm-hmm.
right? And basically, all this research that you need to praise and talk about the effort that they're giving, right? It's like the effort that they give to it. You did so great. You must have worked really hard. And how psychologically that leads to this growth mindset of ability to give, but it all comes down to effort. Like this fixed
Mm-hmm.
mindset, effort is a bad thing, right? If it's not effortless, right? If it just doesn't come to them, then like they're really not that smart, right? But a growth mindset, you realize like it all comes down to the effort that you're willing to give something. It was reminded, like in college, I'll be honest, I did not get like the best grades.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to law school,
Uh-huh.
and I frankly didn't have good enough grades to go to the ones I wanted to go to. And I didn't go to law school. And I don't look back, it's not like a huge regret or anything, but when I went back and did my MBA, I was
Uh-huh.
almost surprised at how much easier everything was. Not that it was easier, but I had matured enough that I was willing to just put in the effort. And it's just like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I don't have to be a genius. I just have to put in the effort to do the
It
homework
wasn't
and to
it
do
wasn't
stuff.
easier.
It
It
wasn't
wasn't actually
easier.
you were better,
I was,
right? Like
yes, yes.
yeah. Like I
And
think that's a vital distinction there. It's like don't wish it was easier, wish you were better, right? That's another
right.
Jim Rohn quote. Man, you guys, I love Jim Rohn. He's just got a ton of great quotes, right? Sorry. Keep going,
So
Sheldon. Keep going.
going back to our real question is like, what is it that you're willing to put real effort into? Effort
Mhm.
enough to sacrifice, you know what I mean? To put above our Netflix, our cell phone, binging. You know, I mean, we always joke about that because it's like it's the low hanging fruit that we all can probably do a little bit better at, and the same side. At the same time, recognizing you have to be able to sharpen the saw, rest. Perhaps there are better ways of doing it than binging 4 hours of television at
Well,
night. But
but I think that brings up the perfect point of, and I've been thinking about this a lot this week with my boys who are getting a little bit older, and I've been wanting to help them create a little more focus in their lives. What is a goal that's important enough to you to overcome distraction, right? Because distraction it comes in. It's a lesser path, right? Your biggest obstacle is an easier path to a lesser goal. And it's easy to be distracted and it requires zero effort. But when you focus on something you really want, something that matters to you, something that's worth the effort, worth the fight, worth your life, even in some instances, that's when you have the power to overcome the obstacles of these lesser distractions. And that's what I've been talking to my boys about because of course like they like video games like most kids, right? They like, watching silly YouTube videos and stuff like that. And we've just been encouraging them more and more to be like, okay, like great, you want to take a moment and watch a movie or you take a moment and play a video game. But more important are the direction you're heading. Like what goal are you pursuing that's creating a new identity in yourself and building a better life for you and those around you. And that has to come from you. You've got to decide what that is and then start taking action on it. And Sheldon and I have talked on this show a lot about what commitment really is. And commitment is time, focus, money, right? All those things. If you're really committed to something, it's going to require some of or
well,
all of those things.
giving those things increases your commitment, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about giving effort. As you give more focus or time or effort or your resources, like that increases your commitment to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about these things. It's like, when is the last time you've been committed to something that you'd be willing to give your life to it, right? That wasn't something that is going back to the Navy SEAL. I mean, he wasn't just born that way.
Yeah.
He grew in that commitment as we grow in whatever we're committed to by giving it more time, more effort, putting, his direction, his thoughts, his money, his life toward that. His commitment rose to the point where it was like, this is his mission and he'll
Yeah.
do anything to make it happen.
Yeah. He had committed to that new identity. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a Navy SEAL, right? So what is it? What identity are you going to create? Like, it's there. And Sheldon talked about this earlier. A lot of us know what it is we want, right? We know where our passion lies. And you have to ask yourself this question. And I had to answer my own question honestly too, is am I going too slow in pursuit of my dreams? I don't know, I'll put that caveat in there. Are you going too slow because you're scared of what other people will think? So I'm not going to answer that question for you. Obviously, that's for you to answer. But are you going too slow in the pursuit of your goal or dream because you're scared of what other people will think? Or even what yourself will think? Like, are you worried that you can't, like the self-doubt that creeps in? And sadly, the answer that I had to write down to this question was yes. That is a big thing that holds me back from the pursuit of my goals. But I'm committing today that that's no longer the case. Committing to writing more, committing to getting an episode out every week. We do our Magic Monday newsletter. If you haven't checked that out, please do. It's short, a little dose of inspiration every Monday. But Sheldon, where did the rubber meet the road on this one? How are they going to put this into action? Because on this show, we don't just like to leave you with a philosophy. We like to leave you with some steps to take.
Yeah. So I think ultimately, again, we sometimes get hung up and it's like, oh, I'm not, nothing drives my passions. That's not true. There are things you're interested, things that inspire you, right? And it's just time to have a little more commitment in those areas. And as you do so, that commitment, it's like that righteous cycle. You know what I mean? It grows on itself, right? So I think that's what it is really coming back to there's everybody has something they want to do, somewhere where they want to go, some cause, something that has been on the back burner too far. And it's just time to commit. It's time to, like the time, the resources, the focus, the effort. We on our website, the tracker, we have a free tool if you want to go use it. It's a tracker for whatever your goal is. I think that's a good starting spot because it helps you boil it down to like, what's my one priority action that I'm going to take ideally daily that's going to move me toward that. That's committing. And it helps you track that along with our whole course is about these ways that help you, this new identity stick, this new habit become part of who you are. But that habit tracker free, anybody can get it. I think that's a great spot to help you identify what it is and figure out how to commit a little bit more by taking daily action.
Absolutely. As we always say, consistency is better than quantity when it comes to pursuing of your goals, right? So, as of today, what is the new identity you want to create? What's worth the fight for you? Right? Where have you wanted to add value or contribution that you just haven't pursued because of fear of what other people might think or of failing or whatever that reason may be? Because we all face that fear. All of us every day, we're facing that fear. And that you're willing, it's worth the fight. Because I got to say, Jon Acuff had a quote the other day I thought was really good. And it fits really nicely with this. He says, "Through, not over." Someone asked me, how do I get over imposter syndrome? Which is exactly what we're talking about, right? I told her, you trade the word over for through. Over is a perfectionism word. It has finality to it as if you get over fear forever. Through admits you don't beat fear just once, you go through it. I've written 8 books, hit the New York Times bestseller list, and sold hundreds of thousands of books and still feel like I'm not a real writer sometimes. That's okay. I don't get over fear. I go through it. But it doesn't stop me, and it shouldn't stop you either. It's really about understanding that the fight is going to exist, and you just get stronger, right? The fight doesn't go away. You just get stronger, and the fight gets easier because you're now capable of fighting that fight. And hey, if I'm going to put a course out there in the world, if I'm going to start sharing a podcast, there are going to be those people as I get more listeners that don't like me, that don't like what I have to say. Or if I'm writing a book, there are people who are going to think my book's dumb, right? They disagree with me. If I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL or whatever, there's going to be people that tell me I can't do it. And it's going to be super hard and physically demanding and all these things that are required of a Navy SEAL. So is it worth the fight for you? And only you can answer that question. And so I would say, pick the thing. And just like Sheldon said, go download our habit tracker. It's free on our website and start tracking this pursuit of your new goal.
That is a powerful mindset. It's like, I think sometimes we have these struggles that we've dealt with, these things that we've recognized. It's like we fall short here, right? And we just want to go like, how do I get over this?
Yeah.
But the mindset I think we need to take is how do we get through it? It's not, there's no finality to this. It's like you learn to tackle it. You learn to sit with discomfort. And that's where the growth happens, right? When you're willing to not run away, you're willing to like, it's uncomfortable and it just sucks.
Well,
but that's where the stretching happens.
Exactly, right? And Seth Godin talks about that, like dancing with doubt, right? So it's like through fear, not over it. It's a dial, not a switch. You can't just turn it off. You're never going to be able to turn off the imposter syndrome. Like, no matter how long we've done this, Sheldon and I still doubt, like, is this episode going to be worthwhile? Are people going to care what we have to say? Right? It's like, he's written 8 books, several of them New York Times bestsellers, hundreds of thousands of copies. And he's like, I don't know. I don't even feel like a real writer sometimes. It's like, nobody in any walk of life is fully over fear or self-doubt. So if that's what's been holding you back, no more, my friend. It's time to take the next step. So with that, we want to thank you guys. This is our 101st episode. And so excited. We have a guest coming on in the next couple of weeks that you're going to love. Wrote a new book. It's super exciting. All about telling your own story. If you guys have thoughts or suggestions for us, please send us an email. hello@habitmasters.com. We would love for you to go through our course and jump on it. Go ahead.
Who would you like us to get on our podcast? You'd be surprised how willing people are to share their message and their idea. Have we ever had anyone just like flat out say no? Yeah, honestly, if there's someone you have on your wish list that you'd like us to interview, let us know. I'll bet you we can get them on. That's a bet.
We've been ignored, but we've never been told. So yes, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend and go leave us a review if you can, if you're on Apple Podcast. If not, no worries. You guys are amazing. We love you. Have a great day. And as always, it is time to start living your best life.